Welcome, everybody. This is Business on the Block, episode 82, blockchain, booze, and real estate. Today, we're going to find out why these are connected. Blockchain is moving into real estate and alcohol. The EU is preparing for a merger of blockchain with AI, and Elon has secured some firepower to go after Sam Altman. We'll give you all the latest in business, AI, and blockchain. This is your weekly digital business revolution update. I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Hi, everyone.
And Mike Neubauer.
Good morning.
So what we're going to run through first, this is going to be story number one. Real estate. Foxton's firm is going to be digitizing home sales. Home Seller Foxton's has become the first real estate agency to digitize the entire property transaction process. This applies to both sales and leasing. They're partnering with a company called Coadjute. It's a blockchain platform, and it'll connect the sellers, the brokers, the lenders, everybody. So now all parties can basically synchronize around progress updates in a secure data fashion. Blockchaining of the home sale process, folks. What do you think about this? Michelle, we'll start with you. Thoughts around what's going on in the real estate world?
Well, the interesting thing and the most exciting thing about this story is if you know anything about the UK's house buying real estate process, it is an absolute and complete and utter nightmare. They're the only words I can describe it. Buying a house, people can you can be waiting 3 months to settle, and on the day that you are to settle for a house, you can have your moving trucks and vans at your house to take your stuff. The seller can cancel, or the buyer can cancel. Like, it is a complete schmozzle here. So this is exciting from the point of view that it might bring some order. And one of the really interesting parts of that particular article was that they also have a superior timeline for settlement as well, 104 days versus the average of 130. So from that point of view, this could actually revolutionize it. Like in Australia, it is not like that. If you are at an auction, when the hammer falls, you own the house. Or if you buy the house and negotiate a price, there's a 3-day cooling off, and after that you lose your deposit or whatever. But here, people pay money, then they get their money back. Like it is, and then that's why if Mike, you're selling your house in order to buy my house, and I'm selling my house in order to buy Marc's house, and when one of us in the chain falls down, everybody loses out. So that happens here all the time. Complete and utter nightmare. The other thing that's really interesting is if you go to how did you say it? Coadjute?
Oh, Coadjute, yeah.
Coadjute's website. COA,
yeah, it's a jute with the co in front of it.
Yes. When you go to their website, they are talking about use cases here, not blockchain. So they don't use Web3. You won't see blockchain or Web3. They talk about digitizing things, and they talk about how they can make it less hassle because the transactions are smoother and stuff. And so that, I think, is an interesting thing as well.
Fascinating. Mike, what are your thoughts on the digitization, as they call it, of the real estate world?
Well, this is nothing new, but first, when my kids get home from school later and they destroy my house, I'm going to actually refer to it as schmuzzling my house.
It's a great
never
term,
heard that one before.
I never did either.
But Inistol made a comment in the Bolt chat about, it's how ironic that, this article about a house on the block is on a website called The Block, on a podcast called Business on the Block. This is nothing new. Okay. So the blockchain applications for real estate have been sort of around for a while, and it just never caught the regular headlines because at the time, I guess it was really focused on, the crypto craze or the NFT craze. But basically what they did is that they just executed specific perimeters within the contract on an on-chain type system. And what that did was it kept, sort of a record, a digital record. And we'll get into some of the applications in the supply chain later, but people can trace back the lineage of the transaction every step of the way forever. Like it's just going to exist forever. So I realize in real estate today, you can look up the history of certain things with the houses and all that other stuff. But this basically removes the middleman and it puts it into this blockchain type environment. Whether they call it or not, whatever. I mean, at this point, I'm kind of over the word games and the semantics with trying to avoid using dangerous words like blockchain or Web3. The technology is what it is, right? We're showcasing a use case for it, and I think that's really what we need to hone in on. There is a practical application that we can identify within all the various industries that we know and love.
I'm going to expand on both of your concepts there, Mike. But before I do, Michelle, schmozzle's great. I got to find a chance to use that.
Is that an Australian thing? Is it? Nobody else has a schmozzle? It's not.
No, I've never heard that before ever.
Could you please define this for the listening audience?
Schmozzle, like it's uncoordinated. It's a mess. It's not. Like it's just
This sounds like my kids after school.
Your kids' playroom when mum or dad haven't tidied up, complete schmozzle.
Okay, great. Now I know how to use this properly. To expand on the business side of this, the digitization and not Web3ization is actually important, Mike. You say it doesn't matter the terms. It does matter because we always have said on this program, longtime listeners know, people will use blockchain when they don't know they're using blockchain. You're absolutely right, Mike. It makes it an efficiency of process that we didn't have before, and now we do, and they want that. But the reality is it was the wallets and the confusing terms, and people didn't want to get involved. Now, if the fact is that they can just do this smoothly, great, they're going to do it. They'll come in droves, but that leads to point two. You said it yourself, removal of the middleman means reduction of players, the number of brokers, the number of banks. This is a big problem on the business side for the business end of real estate. For those middleman players are very established institutions.
Well, okay. While I agree with that comment, like there's still room for growth that expands beyond that, right? So like when internet banking came out, did that put a risk at all the tellers in these banks? They still have jobs?
Not at first, but I mean, ATM machines eventually did. Yeah.
I mean, you still have tellers at banks, right? Most of them are twiddling their thumbs all day because most people don't go into banks anymore. But the point is that there's a shift, right? There's a process in place to, I guess, standardize the technology throughout the industry, and that still creates jobs.
Yeah, I am not crying wolf. I want to see this happen. Obviously, we've run business on the block here. But I think that the reality is when you have 40,000 tellers at, Citibank, and now all of a sudden you only need 4, there's going to be a reduction of the profitability of those middleman institutions.
But there's also going to be validators on the back end within the blockchain ecosystem that can monitor and, I guess, make these transactions a little bit more user friendly so that people, when they interact with it, they don't realize they're using Web3. They sort of are.
We're not in the conspiracy section yet, but I want to just comment. I really think looking at what Wall Street has done with the trading situation, it would be in the bank's interest to find a chance to obfuscate this and own the process internally so you don't just have validators making the money they could have made. I'm not saying that'll happen, but it's something.
And again, anybody can create their own blockchain ecosystem, right? So we have this, in the US anyway, we have something called the MLS, right? This is sort of a standardized system that, identifies services. Yeah, it identifies which properties have been sold, which ones are listed, what the rates are, what the taxes were, what the properties, like there's all the details of the house. And we sort of came to an agreement that, this is the standard that, I guess most people would be able to use in order to find their properties or at least do research on a particular area that they're interested in investing in. This same concept, again, is replaceable with this technology, but there still needs to be that, that check mark where everybody's like, okay, I'm on board. Let's standardize this component of the industry.
But Mike, before I was a famous podcaster, I was doing a lot of real estate, and I'll tell you that the MLS, you have to pay for it if you want the up-to-date version, right? It's just like Wall Street's market data. You can get the old list that's 30 days behind, or you can pay up. In the blockchain world, that goes away.
Well, not really. And here we go with my conspiracy cap.
All right, let's do it.
What?
I'm in.
So where does AI fit into all this, right? So again, we talk about the merger of AI and blockchain pretty frequently here on this show. what if the ability for a lot of these transactions on blockchain can be analyzed and I guess become some sort of an AI system where people can put in what they're looking for, the interests of what they're looking for, the amount that they want to spend, the value, the resell, the potential growth of that community. And AI finds that particular formula for that individual based around all the information that's on chain, right? So is that something that somebody builds an AI bot for that potentially charges that same rate, which would be MLS? That's the future of where all this ends up. These are all things that you used to rely on a realtor for. Right? Let them pay the MLS. Let them present to you the properties in the area based around what you're looking for.
You don't think that Judy, the retired school teacher handling your real estate, is going to be able to do this for you?
I think that, again, it's the teller that knew your business, right? You walk in with an envelope of cash every day and, hey, Mike, how's it going? Business is good. How's the kids, whatever. You see her at the grocery store, you spark up a conversation. I don't know my bank teller now.
Right. You don't need a bank teller now, though.
No.
Very
rarely.
And to your
in
point,
fact,
Mike,
when you have to go in there, you're annoyed.
Yes, right. For me to have to get out of my chair and go to the bank, it better be a big enough problem.
Correct.
It usually is if you have to.
Right. As the guy who runs a business, I do that on occasion, but you're right. I'm annoyed. My point is, Mike, I think that the blockchainization is going to be resisted by the displaced players. I don't know what that looks like, but they're not just going to be like, yeah, initially there's growth where we can digitize our stuff. Great. But then ultimately the biggest players will own the spot, as it always was. And a lot of guys are going to be eliminated. Unfortunately, I'm not happy about it.
I think very similar to AI, it's going to be thrusted in our faces, whether we know it or not. And they're just going to have to either adapt or get out of the way.
Right. All right. I'm going to take us to story number 2. Unless final comments on that, Michelle?
Yes, my final comment is that in the Bolt chat, Insol has put the wiki link to schmozzle so that everyone can learn how to spell it and what the synonyms are and all of that. So thanks for that, Insol.
The international aspects and the sensitivities of this program continue to carry us. I really appreciate your contribution, Michelle.
He's schmuzzling the chat.
Story number 2. A London-based firm named Proofworks will be digitizing alcohol supply chain. Proofworks out of London is digitizing the entire spirits supply chain for their organization, from production and bottling through to customer purchase. All of this will be put on the blockchain. Using Web3 tech, Proofworks platform will enable transparency at every stage of the product journey. This is being driven right now. Obviously, there's increasing costs. We've seen supply chain disruptions. All of this is sparking the need for greater efficiency from these companies. Proofworks is taking action. So before we'll get a comment from you, Mike, first, the thing that caught my eye is that both these last 2 stories coming out of London. Interesting stuff.
Kicking goals here.
Yeah, a lot of English action here.
I can say.
Mike, what do you think about I figured you'd be the most appropriate person to lead us off on the problems with alcohol here.
Well, I mean, alcohol aside, just the operational infrastructure of what blockchain provides. I mean, this is what I do on a day-to-day basis, right? Like I'm in this world all day, every day. And what are we, 80, 83, 82 episodes into this, plus whatever we did before we actually started counting? We've always looked for these business applications within supply chain, right? And blockchain is that ledger. It's that filing cabinet that could be static across every point within a particular supply chain, to the point where the carrot that's ultimately on your table could be traced back every step until the seed was actually planted. Do you plant seeds for carrots? I would assume so.
Yes, you do.
Yes. So
carrots,
every single step along the way. Now, who's going to do an audit on that? Again, enter AI, right? Let AI tell you what processes were in place in order to make you feel a little bit more comfortable on the dietary, things that you have within your meals. Translating this within alcohol, I mean, this is just, that's the variable that we can substitute within any industry that has a supply chain, whether it's shipping stuff, whether it's growing things, organic, farm to plate, whatever, cliche you want to throw at it. This is the engine on the back end that will make that transparency efficient. So it's interesting to see them do this with alcohol, because alcohol is for the most part, very under-regulated when it comes to the production and the manufacturing side, mostly because any bacteria, any germs, anything is automatically killed in the process of making the alcohol itself. So it's going to be interesting to see how deep this goes and really what type of standards are put in place from this component. Here in the US, we have a lot of FDA components and a lot of labeling requirements that these guys are required to have based around lots and batch dates and manufacturing and all these different components. All of this is answered on some sort of a blockchain system. And again, if you take the data, you don't have to look at something like EtherScan or Polyscan or whatever that is that you can, most people would get confused and be turned off anyway. You build a system, you connect an AI system to read the data and provide it in a nice little app that makes people waffles.
We've seen this already with the organic thing of I want to make sure my lettuce is actually organic and not just sprayed. So yeah, it's a good point. Michelle, what are your thoughts on this? Proofworks digitizing the spirits industry.
I mean, we've talked before, haven't we, about different use cases and how different industries could take advantage of this type of technology. And it's been slow on the uptake. There's been the ones that we talk about regularly, loyalty programs and, a few of those other different ones. But this is really with the story previously about the real estate. Now this about, spirits and, distilleries and warehouses using it for logistics and things like that it's really starting to, not that we haven't been saying it for how long now, 2.5 years or 3 years, it's really starting to have legs. And it's part of the reason why I think it does have that is because people are starting to, people need to cut costs in businesses. People also need to have safer way in which you can record the types of things that you own, where they are at any given time, delivering them to consumers or the stores if they're selling it. Those sorts of things are really much more trackable in an authentic way. I think the more AI fake news stuff that comes out over the next 12 to 18 months, it'll make more businesses do this kind of thing because they need to legitimize and to authenticate their transactions and what they're doing with their business.
It's a great point, by the way, and we are going to see a lot more of that as we go. The part that
on one quick thing before you comment on that, because I think we're sort of looking at this from the consumer perspective, but the B2B perspective I think is the most applicable here. Right. So if you're a link in the supply chain that relies on a former link in order for you to execute your task or your operational task, you can a lot easier because you're utilizing the same file cabinet system where they are at in the supply chain. So therefore you can plan, you can budget, you can do whatever you need to do accordingly in order to make sure that when the ball is finally in your court, you can hit the ground running with that. That I think is the most efficient concept of this entire process.
I have two thoughts. Number one, you kind of touched on it, Mike, but I want to expand on this for the audience. Alcohol is one of the products in the world that has a culture around it, meaning there's a fun aspect here. Things like fitness has a culture, tech has a culture. Certain things lend themselves to music for sure. Alcohol is one of them. So you can really build community with that type of a thing. And this is really not touched on much in the article. There's one sentence at the very end, but basically it enables new ways to connect in authentic and meaningful ways to the end consumer. That's what they say. And that is like it's a bombshell that they just kind of, it's getting lost in the sauce. You can create a community around events, around meetups. People love to talk over alcohol. It's a human psychology thing going back to, right.
Yes.
And so Proofworks is touching on something, and I don't even think they realize it yet. They can build an audience that turns into a community in no time flat once the blockchain's all built in place, which they're getting in. I think that this will be copied and become the model for a lot of companies, organizations, and even the non-alcoholic ones like Red Bull are going to be looking at this and saying, why don't we do that?
Well, again, it's a variable, right? So you can replace alcohol with anything. You can replace this company with any industry that has multiple layers of a supply chain. If you're a farmer and you actually grow the crops, you gather the seeds to replant other crops, you bring those crops to a market, you sell it to the end user, you literally go to the user's house and cook the meal for them with that crop. There's no elements of the supply chain there. right? So, as long as we can continuously monitor that, but again, I'm going to stress the operational infrastructure of all of this, right? What does this do from the efficiency side, from one link of the chain to the next, but also in the competitive element of it? Where does the capitalistic element come into this? If somebody's buying seeds for $5 and I know I can make seeds for $4, now I have a targeted audience that I can potentially market to at a better price.
Yeah, there's no question the efficiency play. I also think there's going to be the community play. So, final thoughts, Michelle. I'll take us to the next story.
I will just say that in the Bloc chat, Spanner has raised a really good point about, he was reading an article recently about how much counterfeit honey there is even in big chain supply stores. And he said this kind of process would actually help with that.
Actually, Spanner, great point. And I've read probably the same article, but similar thoughts around the amount of fake honey being manufactured and distributed because it's less regulated. Mike, to your point, it's not as highly managed by the government oversight. So you've got like local honey producers, and it's not just honey, but this is the one the articles were on. Spanner's point is spot on. Spanner, I agree with you. I think that the ability to know where my stuff was sourced is going to be super important when you get to things like, like homegrown anything, organic anything. There's lots of things like, especially these people, these stay-at-home moms or retirees that make soap or candles. How do I know where that stuff comes from? Like, there are people who want to know this, what animals are harmed in this. I'm not.
The difference is that AI is the one that's going to sort all that out, right? So AI is not going to require some claim that a marketing company decided to come up with about how awesome their product is when it's just a stretch of the truth. AI will be able to read whatever elements are on chain and provide that as a legitimate result.
Mike, 4 out of 5 dentists surveyed.
Yeah.
All right. So you keep talking.
Hang on. Hello, Rob.
You keep talking about this combination of blockchain and AI, Mike. I'm taking us into story number 3. The European Union Commission is being urged to prepare for blockchain and AI integrations. So the European Union expects the eventual convergence of blockchain tech and artificial intelligence. They're being guided by a think tank named the European Blockchain Observatory Forum, EUBOF, and they published a report on May 24th, which highlighted blockchain's potential to drive innovation, especially and specifically when combined with AI. So they talked about decentralized AI networks, enhanced smart contracts, DeFi protocols. All of this is enhanced and enabled by blockchain in a way that is just more efficient and effective. So effectively, people are starting to connect the dots, as we've been talking about here for 40 to 50 episodes, that blockchain is amazing, but blockchain that is powered by AI is impenetrable. It's better for efficiency. It's better for innovation. It is really, truly going to advance things forward by simplifying the messy end of the blockchain process that people hate. All of that stuff of signing up and onboarding and the on-ramps and off-ramps that are so difficult with the quote-unquote Web3 world. AI makes this thing way easier. What are your thoughts on this? Michelle, we'll start with you as the European representative on our panel here.
I just love this. All the stories are in Europe or England this week.
Hey, we're multicultural here.
Yeah, yes, we are multicultural. This is true. It's interesting because I know that I've been reading some things recently about how they're not happy about ChatGPT and it doesn't comply with some of their regulations or it doesn't fit properly in it. I think that they are struggling with the fact that they need to make it work, but they're not sure how they're going to do that. There's been some, maneuverings, haven't there? And we've talked about, we've had other articles earlier on regulation and, protocols and stuff that the EU have been coming up with for crypto and, currencies and blockchain stuff. And, 2 or 3 years later, they're still struggling with it. But that said, at least they're attempting to do that as opposed to the United States, who talk about the fact that they need to do it and haven't really got very far.
We've done nothing, literally nothing. There's no regulations right now.
No, I know. They talk about, we should have some. But at least at least in terms of the EU, they, there are initiatives. They've set up groups, even if they're just talking about different things at various times. And I think their initial, blockchain Web3 protocols and stuff are probably already out of date, because with the advent of AI now, and everything's sort of coming at everybody who has tried to do regulation really fast, and that's, maybe that's a benefit to the US, that they haven't actually got anything, because now they can do something that's more up to date. I don't know.
Mike, you've been discussing all morning here about the blockchain AI integration. What are your thoughts on this over there in Europe?
Well, I'm sick of acronyms. Oh, let me start with that. I mean, they couldn't come up with a better one. EBOF.
EUBOF.
They're working on one ASAP, Mike, but keep going.
Yeah, ASAP. That's my cue to shut the hell up and get to the point. What's my thought on this? Well, at first, when you were doing the intro, I was going to cut you off and correct you in my traditional Mike fashion, because you highlighted that blockchain is dependent on AI. My initial thought was that it's reversed, right? Like AI should actually be dependent on blockchain. But then as I let Michelle give her 2 cents and thought a little bit more, I'm glad I did not interrupt you, because the reality is it's cyclical, right? Like one machine feeds the other. It's going to get to a point where one system can't really function the way it's intended to without the other. Blockchain's continuous evolution is going to rely on AI. AI's foundational infrastructure is going to require blockchain. This system is just going to feed into itself. Where does the regulation of all this come in? I mean, it's always miles behind, right? So I sent you both a podcast that Rogan did over the weekend with 2 guys that their sole purpose is figuring out regulatory initiatives when it comes to anything AI related. They've already started the conversations at the government level here. Very complimentary of the response that they received, surprisingly. But there will be efforts put in place. Now, it's an evolutionary arms race in the technology side of this at this point. Who can throw more money at the system to continuously evolve it? But as we've just seen with the latest iPad rollout, these things are paper thin. That's really the only difference between the previous version. So we're going to get this thing to a point where it's going to be able to process much more information, much more faster, but there's no ceiling to this. There's no end goal, right? So it's going to be constant money being thrown at something to enhance it better. And the only way that system continues to evolve is if that same system provides a much more solid foundation, in the case of blockchain.
So my thoughts on this similarly, Mike, is that AI, the big concern right now is that thing will be uncontrollable, if you will, right? Beyond human ability too. Blockchain is the control mechanism for an AI there. If it has to work inside of a blockchain structure, even as an AI, and the ledger has to balance, blockchain becomes the way to control AI in terms of end functionality, like the goal we're trying to get to. And I do think that they work hand in hand. I agree with everything you say, that they are going to develop each other, if you will. To work as intended for each of them ultimately is going to require them to be integrated. And the problem is, second part of this, is the human aspect of governance. The government, whichever one, in this case the EU, but it's the same in the States, is more interested in not how do we make it work? That's the term they'll use. It's how do we control it?
Yes.
How do we get it to do what we
How do we control making it work?
Right, exactly. So, and they'll frame it as safety, which is not, this is always, think of the children is going to be the argument. But the reality is it's about, we have an agenda. We need to make it happen. And now you have agentive agents that can do their own thing in a blockchain structure. That's going to be a problem for the regulation. You call it regulation, Mike. I call it control.
They're one and of the same, right? Because you don't regulate things that you can't control. But I look, I totally agree with that, right? Like I think that this as this evolution continues, whether they're just slow or they're sitting back to see the best time to strike for that power grab and that control. I mean, I guess that's really up for debate. But all the things that are happening within OpenAI, and we're going to talk about Elon in a minute here. There's still so much. There's still so much left to be uncovered on the power that this thing has. All it's going to take is one group or one government or one individual to use it in the wrong way, and before we have the next Sam Bankman-Fried of the AI world, right? And then we have to sit back and we have to say, okay, we're going to run this through our traditional, snail-paced legal system to have a result at the end that nobody's going to even remember or care about. Meanwhile, it's going to put a dark stain on the potential growth and what this system can actually provide as a functional tool for business, for culture, for all of the integrations that we're having in our day-to-day existence now.
But I think Michelle, you're going to say something.
I was going to say, some might say that we already have our SBF in AI.
Some may say that.
I feel like the government
Do I need to put this on today?
We might need to put these on. The government's always going to be a factor, though, Mike. And I, as much as I love you, it's naive to think that it's all just about the business. I want that too. I'm a capitalist. As an American, I think, and we're one of the leaders in the development of the AI. But I feel that government regulatory intrusion is going to be a factor in the development of these things. We have to realize that there's an X factor here. It's not just how does it work.
And that's where the boundaries, the country boundaries, the international presence, and of course, blockchain being a part of that, who's going to govern that? Who's going to regulate that? That's going to be another important thing that they're just not going to either, be able to enforce, or they'll sort of try and fail.
Government, and we don't have the political segmentation would not allow for that.
As somebody who does not want that top-down oversight anyway, I'd be completely against that. I just need to understand, if the goal is control and power, that is a means to an end for their involvement within this technology. If their goal is, okay, we're going to do what we can do, obviously we're not going to be able to control everything. They don't control the whole internet.
Well, I can answer this for you as a history major. This is basically the ones in charge. In this case, let's call it the United States or the West. I'll include Europe here. They're going to be about control and power. That's it. The ones who are not in charge, let's call it the East or any underling type of, up and comer organization, is going to want it to be about efficiency and productivity, right? I want to make my money. If I'm an underprivileged country on the world stage, I just want this thing to help us get rich. If I'm in charge of the system, I just want to make sure I stay in charge of the thing.
But again, I think the business side of this, they still want that productive element.
Yes.
So that's going to fight with the government, regardless, east, west, north,
south. We're already
south.
seeing that. Look at the SEC in America.
And that's why these things are developing at hypersonic speed, trying to avoid, the government from catching up to them to have that friction in place.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to touch
please. Wait, one thing. Mike, can you put the article back up again, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So just as a conspiracy thing, we can see what Mike searches for. So in the editor's choice column on the right, my top story is about BlackRock being the Bitcoin world's largest Bitcoin EFT, and Mike's is about meme coins and Cardano.
Well, that's Mike's business, though, right? That's it. That's what he builds.
I perfectly honest with you guys. I have I don't search that at all. So
I'm joking.
That's interesting.
I'm joking. All the other 4 articles are the same, but the top editor's choice article is different. So that's interesting. Perhaps it's because BlackRock are here and I'm in the UK. And
I remember the early days of when Google algorithms started to get tighter, and people at work would be like, "Dude, I Google, all I ever get to see is people dancing in booty shorts," and someone else would be like, "All I ever see are cats," and you're like, "Oh."
I have this argument. I have this discussion with people and clients all the time. They're like, I want to, yesterday I was ranked 3 on Google. Today I'm 36. And it's like, there's no one set system that everybody taps into anymore. Right. Everything is a personalized experience based around your history. When
we were I worked with algos back on Wall Street, and the trading algorithms were always being tweaked because they're trying to make the thing perform better. So intraday, they're changing it all day, every single week, every month. And I'm sure that's what's going on at these big social media outfits. But there's no such thing as an algorithm. People don't know that.
No, that's right. Anyway, so my only last comment is, please be careful if you're deciding to call your kid Sam. That's all I have to say.
All right. I don't have a story number 4 read up, so I'm going to take us right into Elon Musk. But this isn't really news, but we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that Elon Musk has his startup XAI has raised $6 billion in a Series B funding. So Elon obviously has been talking openly about challenging OpenAI for a while now. This intensifies the AI race that there's a new player coming in. Big companies are backing this. Andreessen Horowitz, Sequoia Capital. Basically, XAI now has a valuation of $24 billion, and they've got $6 billion to spend on hiring people and building the things that are going to go after OpenAI. They're an upstart. They're new. They're small. Like, they're not established yet. But you can't count out an Elon, especially in this world. Like, literally, he was the founder of OpenAI. So I think this is a really interesting story and something to keep an eye on, and it's becoming real now. We'll start with thoughts from you, Mike. What do you think about Elon raising $6 billion to develop his version of AI?
Well, I'd be curious to know how many people that are, or how many companies or hedge funds or organizations that are investing into this particular version of it sat back and waited for him to come out with his, because they had that same thought about, all right, Elon's going to do this. I'm jumping on the Elon train. I'm not going to jump in the hype and the mess of Microsoft and Google and, all these different players that are a little bit further down the racetrack. I'm going to rely on a man who can send us to Mars and can land a rocket ship on a floating platform in the middle of the ocean. So that, I think, is going to stir up a little bit more attention. But he needs to be able to back this with all of his complaints on the current system that's in place. And obviously, he has the social media platform in order to integrate some of those components. He's a big fan of whatever blockchain and crypto bring to the table. Maybe this is the initial merger between the AI and blockchain that we're talking about at a bigger scale. There's so much potential and so much direction that he can bring this in. It's going to be interesting to see the way that he can do this now that he has, a little bit of pool of money to play with and people that he can bring on board. But there will be an intersection at some point between what he's doing at Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter, and what he's building out with this new AI or XAI concept. And look, I'm telling you right now, at some point, this man is building his own blockchain, and he's just going to put all of these efforts on that blockchain. He's already dabbled in meme coins and the ability to set all of the fuel that can fund those types of chains. It's behest of him to, it's like the best option for him to set up his own chain and integrate all of his business ventures within that same chain framework.
For a while, you could buy Tesla merch with crypto. Remember that?
Yep.
Michelle, I know you're no fan of Elon Musk, maybe, but what do you think about him raising $6 billion for XAI?
I think I've mentioned it before on other weeks, where there are people, companies, VCs, venture, investment capital firms. They're just throwing money at anything that has AI in front of it, except at this, it's after the X. And I thought his X was a big capital X. So, anyway.
That is for X, the Twitter X, it is. For this, it's lowercase.
Yes, I know. Look, I don't know what to say, really. No, I think that he will do a reasonable job of making something that will make these people money that they've given money for. I mean, I don't have any, he is smart. He's a smart man. He's a genius in terms of coming up with new concepts. He was there with AI at the beginning. He will do things differently. I think Elon AI will be different to OpenAI's AI. And if he funnels it more into being something that works with his other businesses and has some kind of parallels or draws stuff together, like as Mike says, if he creates his own blockchain, etc., then I think that it will be a success, because most of what he touches is, even though as a human he's a bit like ChatGPT's deceiving AI, really.
So I got a couple of thoughts on this. One of the stories that didn't make the cut for this episode was about the OpenAI organization has consolidated their safety oversights into the hands of Sam Altman directly. So Sam will be responsible at OpenAI for making sure that they don't develop some, Frankenstein AI. We already know this guy's gone, lightning fast forward into making money. It doesn't matter. Safety be damned. My point of that mention is Elon has been very outspoken of his concerns of AI being more dangerous than nuclear bombs. There's many interviews of him talking about the dangers to humanity, etc. So the safety aspects of whatever he's building will eventually become a counterbalance to whatever OpenAI builds. I believe that to be true. I could be wrong. Maybe I've read too many Marvel comics. I feel like it's nice to have a guy like Elon in the world building an AI that is intended to not just be to make money. However, I also agree with Mike, the practical side of this. Elon is the guy to combine AI and blockchain. He's talked about the everything app, WeChat being the model for what X was going to eventually become. He understands how crypto transactions work. It's a more efficient and better way to run a business, as this program has discussed for years. So Elon would know all that already, and he's the type of guy to leverage it. I think that this opens the door. In the beginning, he's going to trail, and it won't be as excellent of a performing, the way Claude is being compared to ChatGPT, is being compared to Gemini. I don't really think the X version of this, XAI, is going to be in that category for a long time. But ultimately, I think it will, and I think it's going to become the counterbalancing force that the world will need. Almost the way I would argue governments have full control of social media till an Elon comes along and shines a light that there's been censorship. You kind of need someone to be in there that's on the side of the, hey, we're not just trying to make money as a big corporate.
What a scary thought.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't want to paint him as like, at the end of the day, he's a billionaire capitalist. Let's not,
God help us all. That's all I have to say.
Does anyone recognize this logo?
No idea what this is. What is this?
No.
Okay, so there's you ever see the movie WALL-E?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, so this is by and large, this is the company that everybody was just fat and happy sitting around in their spaceship, pushing buttons and getting things. This is Elon's future, right? Like he's building that everything app, and it's going to be secured on chain. It's going to be AI driven. People are not even going to need to speak anymore. They're just going to have a hot dog shoved down their gullet.
I don't think so. I think that Elon wants to build something. I mean, the guy is not doing this for money, clearly, or he would just be out of the game already. He's trying to take us to Mars and wants us to be a spacefaring civilization because he believes in humanity needs to survive. He's got these big thoughts. AI, I don't know where he's going to go with it. He probably doesn't know where he's going to go with it. But I like that he's in there. Also, to your point, I think was it Michelle? Which of you made the point about Mike? It was you. Wall Street has been waiting for this guy to come in so they can back this guy. They don't care. Wall Street doesn't give a crap. Whoever's going to make money, if they think Musk will make them $1, they're in. They're going to back the guy. My point is, he will make the dollar. He knows how to do that. You cannot like him, but you can't fault his business prowess.
But who was it which was the big funds was it that gave him the huge money for Twitter?
Oh, I think that was Andreessen Horowitz. I'd have to look it up. I don't remember but yeah, he had.
But it's like those people are not making any money out of that.
Yeah,
not yet.
That's the thing, though. Like, there's always a timeline on. I know I'm going to put money into my real estate development project. And for 3 years, they're going to build this skyscraper, and I'm not going to make any money. But 5 years from now, I'm going to make $10 billion. They're in that.
The dude who spent 10,000 Bitcoin on pizza didn't make money on it.
Poor Laszlo.
Right. So, there's room for growth. And I think this actually paves the way for something like that. Right. If these guys get in at this level and there's a different integration with these multiple layers of technology, Twitter's easily a part of that discussion.
I agree with that. I have no doubt that even though it looks like disparate businesses that have no connection, he is drawing together the dots. And I have absolutely no doubt about that. And this is the next piece in the puzzle for that.
I think
now he's funded for that.
There's a story.
That's right.
We'll be hearkening back to this story in the days ahead because it's pretty clear that he's going to be relevant later. So how? I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking as a quick callback, for those who may remember, I'm changing topics here. There's a news item that, again, didn't make the cut, but I just wanted to mention it. Klarna is a company that has cut their marketing expenses by 25% using AI. So we had talked back when about AI is going to become the cost-cutting device for all these corporations. We're seeing that come to fruition. And another wrap-up story that I wanted to throw out there was Bernstein, which is a Wall Street research firm. Bernstein has predicted that there's a crypto arms race will be forming among asset managers. Global investment firm Bernstein says cryptocurrency is the massive opportunity, which we've kind of seen that. There's a declining popularity of ESG investing. For those not in the finance world, that is environmental, social governance. It's basically diversity. So the popularity of ESG was huge over the last few years, but now it's shifted. So as attention is shifting towards crypto and these funds need to put these money into something else, there's going to be a run on the crypto markets, according to Bernstein. I debated, and we talked about this before the show, folks, about whether this was a conspiracy corner story or not, because it's not really a conspiracy that Wall Street wants to make money from crypto. But what we've seen is supposedly, according to, if you read this article, will pale in what comparison to what's coming in the crypto world. So quick thoughts on this before we do wrap-ups. I guess, Mike, we'll start with you. Do you think that we're going to see more of a interest in crypto? I know Wall Street's going to spark this, of course, but do you think this is a story or not?
I do. And, I think that the ESG decline in popularity is the market, voicing their displeasure for the initiatives that they're being forced to comply with. The corporations clearly were able to, reconfigure their marketing and their production values around this ESG score that either got them funding or did not. But the market is the one that's correcting this. And I think that, with comparing the two, you have this crypto world, which is essentially self-governed, versus this ESG mandated world, which is governed. I think that there's no real comparison on what the market is going to demand. So in Wall Street's infinite, historical pleasure of jumping on whichever, way the wind is blowing, crypto is definitely going to be a vehicle that gets them into that new hype phase. And look, as somebody who has believed in this technology for years now, I think this is a good sign of where things end up. But I also think it's a precursor to one of our predictions at the end of last year about how the ability to integrate within crypto is going to become more of a hardware demand. So we're going to see crypto wallets. We're going to see these different things embedded on our new technology devices moving forward.
Michelle, what do you think about this? Crypto arms race coming in the finance world?
Having just gone through my son's exams, and his history was about, the Cold War and the nuclear arms race and stuff. When I saw the title, I went, made me feel all icky. But so not quite sure about the using of that. But it's just another one of the use case things that we talked, the first two stories we talked about today. This is an extension of that. It's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, but when. And I think that it has to happen as well. And ultimately, everything, we've talked about it, as Marc said, for years now. Everything will be recorded on the blockchain. The blockchain will be useful in doing all of these sorts of funds, or whether it be planning, whether it be urban planning, whether it be environmental stuff. It will be what is the thing that allows us to recover from the fake AI news stuff.
I have only two thoughts on this. Number one, I do agree that there's going to be a crypto arms race. I think that Wall Street is going to just get their grubby mitts in there. We know that. But more importantly, I would again draw the distinction between crypto and Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you can't print. Everything else you can print. Just keep that in mind. All right, we'll do the recap.
Depends what chain it's on. You can build your own chain and have the same blueprint as Bitcoin. The
traditional Bitcoin, as structured by Satoshi Nakamoto, is what will end up being the wealth preservation vehicle. I'm predicting here, by the way. I have no idea, but this is my thought. Because the reason crypto is growing in popularity, there's a speculative aspect. I want to make money. But there's a lot of people that are like, inflation is 10%. My groceries are going to how do I preserve the value of my money? And
correct. And with the model that Bitcoin has already put in place, as long as it is taken, a lot of that was educating the market that this is a system that works. How long before a Pepsi version comes out of Bitcoin?
But you can still print Pepsi coins.
You can mimic the exact same model is my point.
You
can
they are
build
being
this
mimicked.
chain.
Ethereum is a mimic. You can mimic everything. but you can't.
You're saying that you can print it. What if you build a chain that has the exact same protocols as something like Bitcoin, where you do not have the ability to print it?
Yeah, I understand, but why would they do that? Why would Wall Street do that?
Because it's a model that works, and why not repeat something that works?
Because of control.
They have control if that happens.
You want the ability to. Okay, so time out, let me draw a distinction. Wall Street and the companies, I agree with you. The government, I don't agree with you.
I'm not saying government. I'm saying the free market system.
Okay, yeah, then we're on the same page. Unfortunately, I'm doing recaps. So this week we discussed a couple of different things. Number one, Foxton's Real Estate is digitizing home sales. Proofworks is digitizing alcohol supply chain. The EU Commission is preparing for blockchain and AI to be integrated. And Elon Musk has raised $6 billion to develop AI. Final thoughts, takeaways, and comments. Michelle, we'll start with you.
Well, I don't really have much to say about what are the articles other than what I've said, but I did want to say a throwback to something else. The Doge dog died this week. And I think that we need to pay tribute to the fact that the dog used in the pictures for Doge Dog actually passed. The real dog passed away this week, and that's very sad. The beauty of the internet. Kabosu, the dog behind the Doge meme, has died after 14 years of internet fame. The Japanese Shiba Inu inspired a generation of online jokes and became the face of Doge crypto. She had been suffering from leukemia. She died May 24th.
Well,
very sad.
At least she lives forever on a blockchain.
That's fantastic. Mike, final thoughts on the stories that we saw and ran through today.
I mean, there's so much here, but I think that, again, we're just starting to see the emergence of what blockchain would be as far as a vehicle or an engine in just standard operations and supply chain initiatives within any company, any organization. It's just it's a technology that is reliable enough to be able to entrust different levels of operational infrastructure within an organization. And where that trickles down to the end consumer, not necessarily relevant at this point, but again, as long as people realize that this isn't a flash in the pan technology, it is here to stay. Something we've harped on forever on this show. There will be a merger in the current way things are conducted to the existing way that we talk about here all the time with respect to blockchain. So in comparison purposes, think of it from the file cabinet paperwork moving into a digital server network that your company organizes. We're now taking that server network and we're migrating that into a more secure, more transparent, more widely accepted and accessible technology in the form of this blockchain.
So my final thoughts, 2 years ago to the day, I published an article entitled "The NFT Disruption You Don't See Coming." And it discussed on LinkedIn around the 9 applications and use cases for blockchain that people just weren't talking about, weren't aware of it. 2 of which are on today's news. The homes and the alcohol, like the ability to form soup to nuts, a blockchain process that you can create efficiency, create community. I think that is the news that we should be focused on. That is the focus of this program. We've discussing blockchain for a couple of years now. We're seeing it come to fruition. Companies are doing things that are making them better, more efficient. They're going to grow. Bottom line, they're going to make more money. And so I think that this is going to become the norm. This is not me wishful thinking. It's about money.
I'm going to go shermuzzle my day and have a drink.
And we've all learned a new word today, Michelle. Shermuzzle.
Shamazzle with an O.
I wrote it down actually. Shamazzle. Discombobulated. Yeah. I want to thank everyone for listening. The Bolt Chat, as always, you guys are active. We appreciate the support. We, of course, support you in return. We are here every Wednesday morning, Eastern Time, 9:30 a.m. Business on the Block. The purpose of this program is to discuss we call it your insight to the digital business revolution, but we bring insights around blockchain, AI, business developments on the serious level to try to figure out how can we all benefit from what's happening in the business world today. So I want to thank everyone. Final thoughts, goodbyes from my colleagues.
Peace.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys next week, same time.